So, what makes grading so difficult to talk about and even harder to change? Today, here on Ed Family, we're looking at Chapter 1 of the Grading for Equity text by Joe Feldman. And there's a couple of questions actually at the end of Chapter 1 that's just so great to look at. This is a great book to look at as we think about grading and grading for equity. And I'm just going to go ahead and read some of the questions at the end of Chapter 1, kind of going through this book, looking at the questions, thinking about what the text says, and then kind of talking back to the text as I think about my own thoughts related to what this text is helping me to think about. So let me go ahead and read the questions. And by the way, even if you didn't read the text, didn't read Chapter 1, I think there's still a lot of benefit in just going over the questions. They're just so good, so engaging. So here we go. What are some beliefs you have about teenagers? What motivates and demotivates them? Are they more concerned with learning or their grade? What is your vision for grading? What do you wish grading could be for students, particularly the most vulnerable populations? And what do you wish grading could be for you? In what ways do current grading practices meet those expectations, and what ways do they do not? Which of your grading practices do you believe best supports learning? Why? Which of your grading practices are you most open to reconsidering, and why again? So once again, these questions are so great. And, when I think about what motivates youth, I think they're really thinking about who they are. They're thinking about their identity. They're asking the question, who am I? So when we give work that relates to helping students to kind of think about who they are and their identity and their future and their purpose, and then of course connecting that to the real world in a comfortable way, that's so powerful. That's so powerful to provide for our students, and especially for our most vulnerable students. I know that in very high supportive families, I'm sure there's probably like conversations at the dinner table around these kinds of things. And I'm so glad that so many of our families are doing that, and they have spaces and they have people that they're connected to that could help out in this kind of way. But, sadly, that's not the case for so many of our young people, whether it's because of their home situation or immigration experience. Sometimes there's aspects to that can make it harder. I'm not saying it can't happen, but there can be some additional barriers that can make it a little bit harder to kind of process through all experiences, right? So as I think about assessments, I'm thinking, what kind of assessments can I give to my students? And then how am I going to grade that assessment? I try to think about assessments that really elevate student voice, giving them a chance to voice what it is that they're thinking. So maybe it begins with the writing, but then I really think students being able to exercise their voice, to speak it out. There's something very powerful about that. And then giving them the choice of what it is that they want to talk about, and giving them a variety of different ways to show what they know. Allowing them to kind of have passion over and talk about whatever it is that they're passionate about. It's not like the teacher saying, hey, it can only be this, but there's lots of different ways for students to express what they're passionate about, what they feel purpose in. And I think in doing so, it gives them a lot of sense of agency, like, wow, I have a lot of choice and decision making, so that I feel like I could do something about this situation. And they feel like they could do something about this situation, maybe they could do that also with this situation and apply to multiple situations. And then, of course, supporting students with action, good actions, right? So I'm just thinking about a course or two courses that I just developed, the Asian American Studies course and the Korean American Studies course. Let's see, is that switching over? Yeah, here we go. That's how I'm beginning. So it's a project-based learning, moving from one project to the next. I'm just calling them modules, but they're really project-based learning to project-based learning. And the first component of this, and for both courses, is having students know and tell their stories. So a lot of different assignments connected with building that community, having students know and tell their story. I think when we look at Asian American Studies and Korean American Studies, sometimes it's just focused on one little event, and there's a place for looking very closely. But I think it helps to look at the big historical picture of the experience, and then a lot of that intersectionality with other ethnic groups and the entire history of the country as well. I think it's very important to look at the big picture as well. And then creating something authentic where students can really showcase what they know. So it's not just they make something, they turn it in, forget about it. They make something, turn it in, forget about it. But they create something that lasts, something that could even be a legacy for them. I think that would be motivating for students, knowing that the student work that they create is not only going to help them, is not going to only help others, is not only going to help people in the community to have a chance to take a look at this, but also the future generations. In that case, my history students aren't just history students, but they're also history makers. I think there's something very empowering about that, which is why this virtual museum for both these courses. And then curating the virtual museum. So as we think about what is going to be in this place, a lot of opportunity and space for students to do this. And then finally, Civic Action, where students are deciding what kinds of issues that they want to talk about, who should be involved in those conversations, and then deciding on what kind of action to take. I think when they have activities like this and they're graded on activities like this, it's motivating. And it's motivating for all learners, but especially our plurilingual students, especially our SPED students, because it's giving them that voice, choice, passion, purpose, agency, and action. So yes, grading and schoolwork can either motivate or demotivate. So if I were doing work that I did not find relevant, and it could be still important, but let's just say the connection wasn't being made for me as a student, like I didn't see the point of why I would do this work, didn't have a chance to think about my own learning, no space to really do that metacognition, it seemed like I couldn't get certain grades, that could demotivate. Now, there's a lot of students who are able to persevere despite those feelings, but there's somewhere, because of other barriers, it becomes harder to do that. So once again, the question of my thinking is, how can I remove those barriers? And one way to do that is to also align rubrics that support with some of the activities that I just talked about. So aligning rubrics that can help with that. And it could be rubrics that we use in our district. In Anaheim Union High School District, we have a 5 C's rubric, which focuses on communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, compassion. And I think even students realize, you know what, I can see how these skills are transferable to high school, these skills are transferable to college, and these skills are contributable beyond. I think students realize that, and so it's authentic, it's very real to them. And of course, you have your end product, but I think what also students need is they need encouragement along the journey. It can't be just like a one and done and that's it, but encouragement across that journey. So actually, I'm not going to go into detail on it completely, but I did create an Ed Family on 3 strategies to get the best work from students on big projects where progress monitoring is very important. So throughout the process, progress monitoring, and I talked about Clipboard cruising and walking around and just kind of noticing the good that's happening. I talked about having a short mini conference and how that could be really empowering, and a progress monitoring chart, so I can kind of keep track of where everyone is at, so that the goal is to help the student reach whatever mastery level that they're desiring. So asking them, hey, where do you want to be? How can I, as your teacher, support you in getting there? So we're kind of on the same team. So how does your grading look? As you think about your grading, what are your grading practices that help to motivate? And then you can see that I'm kind of thinking about it, reflecting on it, and wanting to improve what's already good and just making it better, and just continuing to make it better as well. This is Dr. Kim from Ed Family. If you like this video is helpful in helping you think about grading for equity, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to hear what we talk about in the upcoming chapters where we have more questions to discuss, make sure you subscribe so you have a chance to pick that up. This is Dr. Kim from Ed Family signing out, where our goal is to help students find out what they're good at so that they can do good with it.